The Instagram notification lit up my phone screen, and just like that, my whole world imploded. There he was, my brother Derek, standing on a yacht in the Mediterranean, his arm wrapped around a gorgeous blonde while flashing a diamond ring at the camera. The caption read, "She said yes. Can't wait to marry the love of my life in Tuscany this summer. What a blessed. My name is Summer, and that's my brother who ghosted me after borrowing $20,000 of my hard earned money 6 months ago." "I can't believe this," I whispered, my hands shaking as I showed my phone to Michaela, my best friend and catering assistant. That lying piece of— Michaela stopped herself, glancing around our empty commercial kitchen. "Summer, isn't that the money he said he needed for his startup?" I nodded, still staring at the photo. The expensive watch on his wrist, the designer clothes, the yacht location tag in Porto Cervo. It was all there, bought with my money. Money I'd scraped together from years of building my catering business from scratch. "Have you tried calling him again?" Michaela asked, wiping down the steel prep table with more force than necessary. "Every day for months, his number's disconnected." I slumped onto a nearby stool. "Mom keeps saying he's just busy with his new venture and that I need to be more understanding. She has no idea I gave him the money." The oven timer buzzed, jolting me back to reality. We had a wedding reception to cater in 2 hours. I stood up, straightening my chef's coat, trying to push down the anger threatening to overwhelm me. "Remember when we were kids?" I said, pulling out the appetizer trays. Derek would always take the blame when I broke something. He'd stand there, looking Mom straight in the eye, saying I did it, just to protect me. "What happened to that brother?" Michaela squeezed my shoulder. "People change, honey. Usually not for the better when money's involved." My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email, the official wedding invitation. I opened it, my jaw dropping at the details. "They're getting married at Villa Lorenzo in Tuscany. The guest list is over 200 people. That's one of the most expensive venues in Italy," Michaela said, peering over my shoulder. "Must be nice to fund your dream wedding with your sister's stolen money." I scrolled through the invitation, noting the date was just 2 months away. Something clicked in my mind, a dangerous idea taking shape. "Michaela," I said slowly, "doesn't your cousin work for that high-end wedding planning company? The one that handles international events?" She looked up from the garnishes she was preparing. "Yeah, why? Do they handle staffing for destination weddings? Like hiring local caterers and service staff? Summer?" Michaela's eyes widened as she caught on. "What are you thinking?" I pulled up the wedding planner's website on my phone. "I'm thinking it's time my brother learned about karma, and who better to serve it than his own sister?" "You can't be serious," Michaela said, but I could see the gleam of interest in her eyes. "You want to secretly cater his wedding?" "Why not? He hasn't seen me in months. With the right disguise, he'd never recognize me. And I'm damn good at what I do. You know that." The possibilities started flooding my mind. Every carefully plated dish, every perfectly timed service, leading up to the moment when the kitchen door swung open as our current clients arrived for their food tasting. I quickly pocketed my phone, pushing thoughts of revenge aside for the moment. But as I walked them through their menu options, my mind kept drifting to Tuscany, to Derek, and to the 20,000 ways I could make him regret betraying my trust. Later that night, after our successful catering job, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at Derek's engagement photo again. The same brother who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd threatened my first boyfriend, who'd helped me start my catering business, now smiling smugly from a yacht bought with my money. I opened my laptop and started typing, "International catering experience, specialized in Italian cuisine." The job application took shape as my resolve hardened. If Derek thought he could just disappear with my money and live his best life, he had another thing coming. My brother was about to learn that revenge, like the best meals is a dish best served cold. You need to look completely different, Michaela said, circling me with a critical eye in the salon chair. The kind of different where your own mother wouldn't recognize you. Mom barely notices me anyway, I muttered, watching chunks of my long brown hair fall to the floor. The stylist worked quickly, transforming my appearance with each snip. 2 weeks had passed since discovering Derek's engagement, and everything was falling into place faster than I'd expected. Michaela's cousin had come through with flying colors, recommending me to the wedding planning company. One video interview later, conducted with my hair pulled back severely and wearing thick-rimmed glasses, I was hired as part of the catering staff for the wedding at Villa Lorenzo. What do you think? The stylist spun me around to face the mirror. I barely recognized myself. My once long brown hair was now a sophisticated platinum blonde bob, styled to frame my face differently. Combined with the colored contacts I'd bought, I looked like a completely different person. Holy shit, Michaela whispered. You look amazing and nothing like yourself. Back at my apartment, we spread the wedding details across my kitchen table. Michaela pointed to the menu plan. They're expecting traditional Tuscan cuisine with a modern twist. Right up your alley. Look at this budget. I tapped the number at the bottom of the page. 50,000 euros just for catering. That's more than double what he stole from me. Speaking of money, Michaela said, pulling out her laptop, I've been doing some digging. Your brother's new father-in-law is Otto Weber, CEO of Weber Industries. The fiancée, Emma, is his only daughter. I leaned over to look at Otto's photo. So that's where the money's coming from. Derek really traded up, didn't he? The question is, Michaela said, closing her laptop, what exactly are you planning to do at this wedding? Because I'm coming with you to Italy either way. I walked to my bedroom and returned with a small notebook. I've been working on something. Remember that molecular gastronomy course I took last year? Michaela's eyes lit up. The one where you learn to make those messages appear in food using different melting points? Exactly. I opened the notebook to reveal detailed sketches. Imagine the wedding dinner. Everything's perfect. The appetizers, the primi, the secondi. Then, during dessert, as the chocolate soufflés warm up, messages start appearing in each one. Messages saying what? The truth. About the stolen money, about how he disappeared, about how he used his sister's savings to fund his new life. I closed the notebook. By the time coffee is served, everyone will know exactly who Derek really is. Michaela was quiet for a moment. You know this could backfire spectacularly, right? You could lose your business reputation. Hell, you could get sued. I know. I walked to the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. But every time I think about backing out, I remember checking my account balance last month. Remember, when I couldn't pay our suppliers because the money I'd saved was gone? My phone buzzed. An email from the wedding planners with my flight details to Italy. First-class tickets, luxury accommodation, all expenses paid. The irony wasn't lost on me. Got your passport ready? Michaela asked, already knowing the answer. She'd been helping me prepare for weeks. Right here, I patted my bag. Along with my new ID badge, courtesy of the wedding planning company. Meet Sofia Martinez, expert caterer from Barcelona. Sofia? Michaela raised an eyebrow. That's what you went with? It was my grandmother's name. Besides, I've been practicing my Spanish. Between that and the Italian I already know from culinary school, I should be fine. We spent the next hour reviewing the timeline. The wedding was in 3 weeks. We'd arrive in Tuscany 5 days before the event to prep with the local staff. Derek and Emma would arrive 3 days before, along with the main wedding party. One more thing, Michaela said, pulling something from her bag. I got you these. She handed me a pair of gold-rimmed glasses with clear lenses. They change your face shape just enough to be unrecognizable. I tried them on, checking my reflection in the window. Between the new hair, colored contacts, and glasses, I really did look like a different person. Sophia Martinez, ready to serve up the perfect revenge. You know what the best part is? I said, turning back to Michaela. Derek always said my cooking was just a hobby, that I'd never make it as a real chef. Now he's paying top dollar for my services, and he doesn't even know it. Michaela raised her coffee mug in a mock toast. To Karma, served a la carte. I clinked my mug against hers, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in my stomach. In 3 weeks, I'd either pull off the perfect revenge or destroy everything I'd worked for. Either way, there was no turning back now. Villa Lorenzo was even more spectacular in person than in the photos. Standing in the herb garden, surrounded by the scent of fresh rosemary and basil, I watched the early morning sun paint the Tuscan hills gold. The peaceful scene was shattered by a sharp voice behind me. Sophia, we need you in the kitchen. Now! I turned to face Marco, the head chef coordinator, trying to keep my expression neutral despite my racing heart. This was my first real test, working alongside the local Italian kitchen staff. Inside the villa's industrial kitchen, chaos reigned. Prep cooks darted between stations, while servers practiced their synchronized movements for the reception. Michaela, who'd been hired as my assistant, caught my eye and gave me a subtle nod. The bride and groom arrived today, Marco announced, clapping his hands for attention. We have the welcome dinner tonight. 40 guests. Everything must be perfetto. I tied my apron and got to work, falling into the familiar rhythm of kitchen life. Years of catering experience took over as I directed my station, speaking in careful Spanish-accented English when needed. The local staff seemed to accept me without question, just another hired professional for this high-profile wedding. They're here, someone called from the window. My hands froze mid-chop as I heard cars pulling up outside. Keep working, Michaela muttered, bumping my shoulder. Don't look suspicious. But I couldn't help stealing glances through the kitchen windows as Derek stepped out of a luxury SUV. He looked exactly like his Instagram photos. Expensive watch, designer sunglasses, not a care in the world. Emma followed, her blonde hair catching the sunlight as she twirled to take in the villa. It's perfect, I heard her squeal. Derek, honey, isn't it perfect? Only the best for you, babe, he replied, and I had to turn away before I threw up in the nearest pot of soup. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. I was carefully piping filling into miniature pastries when the kitchen door swung open. Emma walked in, followed by an older man I recognized as Otto Weber. We'd love to meet the catering team, Emma announced, her smile genuine and warm. Marco introduced each staff member. When he got to me, I kept my eyes down, focusing on my work. This is Sophia, our pastry specialist from Barcelona. Oh, these look amazing. Emma leaned in to examine my pastries. I held my breath, but she showed no sign of recognition. Why would she? She'd never met her fiancé's sister. Cost no object for my little girl's wedding, Otto declared, his voice carrying that distinct tone of old money. We expect nothing but excellence. Speaking of excellence, Derek's voice came from the doorway, and my piping bag nearly slipped from my hands. Something smells incredible in here. I turned away, pretending to check the ovens, as Derek sauntered into the kitchen. He'd always loved playing the big shot, but this was different. This was someone who'd grown comfortable with luxury bought with stolen money. Try this, Marco offered, holding out one of my pastries. I watched from the corner of my eye as Derek popped it into his mouth. Wow, he said, reaching for another. These are fantastic. Reminds me of... He paused, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought he'd made the connection. But then he shrugged. Never mind, just really good. They left soon after, but not before Emma insisted on hugging each staff member. When she got to me, she whispered, "Thank you for helping make our day special." The guilt hit me like a punch to the gut. Emma was genuinely nice. She had no idea what kind of man she was marrying. "You okay?" Michaela asked once they'd gone, finding me in the walk-in cooler where I'd fled to collect myself. "I don't know," I admitted, arranging garnishes with shaking hands. Seeing him in person, hearing his voice, and Emma's so sweet. "Sweet people deserve to know the truth," Michaela said firmly. "Remember why we're here." Before I could respond, Marco burst into the cooler. "Emergency! The mother of the groom just arrived early. She's requesting a special dinner with the happy couple tonight." The container of microgreens slipped from my hands, scattering across the floor. Mom was here, 3 days early. "Sophia?" Marco frowned at my reaction. "Is there a problem?" I forced a smile, channeling every ounce of professional composure I had. "No problem. I'll start on the special menu right away." But as I bent to clean up the spilled garnishes, my mind raced. Mom had always been able to see through my disguises as a kid. Would she recognize me now? And more importantly, whose side would she take when the truth finally came out? The welcome dinner was about to become a lot more interesting than planned. "Derek has always been destined for greatness," Mom announced to the dinner table, swirling her wine glass. "Even as a child, I knew he was special." From my position along the kitchen service wall, I watched her hold court at the intimate family dinner. She hadn't changed a bit. Same perfectly coiffed hair, same way of commanding attention, and, of course, same blind spot when it came to her precious son. "Tell them about his first business venture," she urged Derek, beaming with pride. "The one that's doing so well now." Derek shifted in his seat, taking a long sip of wine. "Oh, you know, Mom, just hard work and good timing. And good connections," Otto added, raising his glass. "The merger with my company's European division couldn't have come at a better time." I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. Merger? European division? So that's where my money had gone, buying his way into his future father-in-law's business. "Sophia!" Marco hissed from behind me. "The next course." I snapped back to attention, helping serve the risotto with black truffles. As I placed Mom's plate in front of her, she looked up, studying my face. "You remind me of someone," she said, frowning slightly. "I get that a lot," I replied in my practiced Spanish accent, quickly moving to the next guest. "You know who she reminds me of?" Derek said, and my heart stopped. "That actress from that Spanish show you like, Emma." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, I was thinking the same thing." I retreated to the kitchen, letting out a shaky breath. Michaela squeezed my arm as she passed with more wine. "Your mother's been talking about Derek for 20 minutes straight," she whispered when she returned. "Hasn't mentioned you once." "Of course not," I muttered, plating the main course. "I'm just the disappointment who wasted her potential on a catering business." Back in the dining room, the conversation had turned to wedding details. Emma was describing the cake design when Mom interrupted. "It reminds me of the time Derek won his middle school baking competition," she said. "He made the most beautiful chocolate cake." I gripped the serving tray so hard my knuckles turned white. I had made that cake. Derek had only put his name on it because I was too sick to attend the competition. "Actually," Derek started, and for a moment I thought he might tell the truth. "It was—" "Oh, speaking of achievements," Mom cut in. "Did you know Derek's company is projecting 7-figure revenues this quarter?" Otto raised his eyebrows, clearly impressed. "The merger's paying off already, I see." "It's all about seizing opportunities," Derek said, reaching for Emma's hand across the table. "When you see something valuable, you have to grab it." The irony of his words made me want to scream. Instead, I methodically served the roasted lamb, my movements mechanical as years of training took over. This is incredible, Emma exclaimed after her first bite. The sauce is perfect. Don't you think so, Derek? Derek nodded, his mouth full. Reminds me of. He paused again, that same confused look crossing his face. Actually, it tastes exactly like. Like what, honey? Emma asked. He shook his head. Nothing. Just really good. Of course it reminded him of something. It was our grandmother's recipe, the one I'd perfected over years of practice, the one he used to beg me to make for his birthdays. As I cleared the plates, Mom grabbed my wrist. Are you sure we haven't met before? There's something so familiar about you. Mama, Emma laughed, you can't know every Spanish chef in Europe. The table erupted in polite laughter, and Mom released my wrist. But I could feel her eyes following me as I worked. Later, as the kitchen staff cleaned up, I overheard Otto and Derek in the hallway. The merger paperwork goes through tomorrow, Otto said. 20,000 euros was a smart investment on your part. Bought you a seat at the table. Best decision I ever made, Derek replied. Well, second best, after proposing to Emma. I stood frozen, clutching a stack of plates as their voices faded away. 20,000 euros. The exact amount he'd stolen from me, used to buy his way into the Weber family business. Summer? Michaela's voice brought me back to reality. She dropped the fake name, seeing we were alone. You okay? I carefully set down the plates. Change of plans. The revenge needs to happen at tomorrow night's rehearsal dinner, not the wedding. Why? Because tomorrow's when he signs the merger papers. Tomorrow's when he thinks he's won. I pulled out my notebook, flipping to the dessert plans. And tomorrow's when everyone learns exactly how he got his seat at the table. The sound of Mom's laughter drifted in from the garden, mingling with Derek's voice and Emma's giggles. Let them enjoy tonight, I thought. Tomorrow would be a different story entirely. The rehearsal dinner was in full swing, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I'd been fine during prep, fine during the ceremony practice, but now, as I watched the serving staff carry out my carefully crafted appetizers, reality hit hard. There was no going back. The merger papers are signed, Otto announced, raising his glass. The intimate gathering of 50 guests erupted in applause. Derek stood, basking in the attention, his arm around Emma. To new beginnings, he toasted, and I fought the urge to throw a serving tray at his head. Sophia, Marco called from behind me. Time for the main course. Each plate was a work of art. Herb-crusted lamb, perfectly seared, with a red wine reduction that would start revealing its secret message as it cooled. I'd tested the technique countless times back home, but never with stakes this high. This sauce, Otto remarked as he took his first bite. There's something interesting about it. I held my breath, watching from my position near the kitchen door. Any minute now. Look, Emma pointed at her plate. The sauce. There are words appearing. Around the table, guests leaned in to examine their plates. The messages were becoming visible, one by one. Ask Derek about the stolen money. 20,000 reasons to doubt. Blood money bought this merger. Derek's fork clattered against his plate. His face went pale as he read his own message. Your sister sends her regards. What is this? Otto demanded, standing up. Derek, what are they talking about? I don't. Derek's eyes darted around the room, finally landing on me. I stepped forward, removing my glasses. Hello, brother, I said in my normal voice. Remember that business loan you needed? The room went silent. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Mom dropped her wine glass, red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. Summer? Derek whispered. What are you doing here? Catering your wedding, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Someone had to, since you spent my catering business savings on buying your way into Otto's company. Is this true? Otto turned to Derek, his face darkening. The 20,000 euros you invested, you stole it from your sister? It wasn't stealing. Derek stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. It was a loan. I was going to pay her back. When? I demanded. Before or after you disconnected your phone and blocked me on everything? Before or after you used my money to fund your new life? Emma pushed away from the table. Derek, you told me the investment came from your savings. Baby, I can explain. Explain what? Otto's voice boomed across the room. How you built this merger on stolen money. How you lied to my daughter. Mom finally found her voice. Derek wouldn't do that. There must be some mistake. Summer, you're just jealous of your brother's success. Success? I laughed bitterly. Let me show you what his success cost me. I pulled out my phone, projecting my bank statements onto the dining room wall. 6 months ago, my business account had 20,000 euros. The next day, zero. All transferred to Derek's account. The room erupted in chaos. Emma ran out crying, followed by her father. Guests whispered and pointed. Derek stood frozen, his perfect world crumbling around him. You ruined everything, he hissed, advancing toward me. You couldn't just be happy for me, could you? Happy? I stood my ground. I had to take out loans to keep my business afloat. I lost contracts because I couldn't pay suppliers, all while you were posting yacht photos on Instagram. Enough! Otto had returned, security guards flanking him. Derek, the merger is off, and you'll be hearing from my lawyers. Otto, please, Derek started, but Otto cut him off. Emma's upstairs packing. I suggest you do the same. He turned to me. Ms. Robinson, I apologize for my future son-in-law's, former future son-in-law's actions. You'll have your money back, with interest, by morning. As security escorted a protesting Derek out, Mom grabbed my arm. How could you do this to your brother? To this family? I gently removed her hand. The same way you always chose him over me, easily. The remaining guests were filing out, leaving half-eaten plates with their damning messages. Michaela appeared at my side, squeezing my shoulder. You okay? She asked. Before I could answer, Emma returned, eyes red but spine straight. I want to thank you, she said quietly, for showing me who he really is before it was too late. I nodded, unexpected tears pricking my eyes. I'm sorry it had to be like this. I'm not, she replied. Better to serve truth with dinner than live with lies forever. As the villa staff began clearing plates, I stood in the chaos of my revenge fulfilled. The satisfaction felt hollow somehow, tasting more bitter than sweet. But as I watched Derek's figure disappear down the driveway, I knew I'd done the right thing. Sometimes justice comes with a side of heartbreak. The villa descended into chaos after Derek's departure. Guests huddled in small groups, whispering and shooting glances my way. The kitchen staff hovered uncertainly, looking to Marco for direction. What do we do with all this food? Marco asked, gesturing at the elaborate dessert spread we'd prepared. The wedding is clearly canceled. Before I could respond, Otto strode into the kitchen. Everyone gets paid in full, he announced. And he turned to me. Ms. Robinson, a word? I followed him to his study, where Emma sat with red-rimmed eyes, scrolling through her phone. He's deleted everything, she said without looking up. All his social media, gone, like he never existed. Just like he did to me, I replied, sinking into a leather chair. Look, I'm sorry about— Don't apologize, Otto interrupted, pouring 3 glasses of scotch. You did us a favor. Expensive timing, but better than discovering this after the wedding. He handed me a glass. The money will be in your account by morning. plus compensation for damages. Emma finally looked up from her phone. Did you know he was posting about our engagement the same week he stole from you? That's how I found out, I admitted, taking a sip of scotch. Instagram notification. A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom stood there, her perfect makeup now streaked with tears. How dare you, she hissed at me. How dare you humiliate your brother like this, in front of everyone? Mrs. Robinson, Otto said firmly, your son humiliated himself when he chose to commit fraud. It wasn't fraud, it was a family loan that he never intended to repay, I cut in, standing up. Just like the money he borrowed from you last Christmas. Or did he pay that back? Mom's silence was answer enough. Thought so. I downed the rest of my scotch. You know what the worst part is? If he'd just asked for help, been honest about wanting to impress Otto's family, I would have helped him anyway, because that's what family does. I need to make some calls, Otto said, checking his phone. The press will be all over this by morning. Emma, we should... Another commotion erupted from downstairs. Michaela burst into the study, breathless. Derek's back, she panted. And he's drunk. He's threatening to tell the media everything unless Otto reinstates the merger. We rushed downstairs to find Derek swaying in the entrance hall, clutching a bottle of wine. Several guests had their phones out recording. There she is, he slurred, pointing at me. My sister, the saboteur. Always jealous, always trying to ruin my life. Derek, stop, Emma pleaded. You're making it worse. Worse? He laughed bitterly. How could it be worse? My sister just destroyed my future because of a little loan. 20,000 euros isn't a little loan, Otto snapped. And threatening me won't work. Security. You don't get it, Derek continued, dodging the approaching security guards. I had to do it. How else could I compete in your world? Summer was always the golden child, the entrepreneur, the successful one. What? I stepped forward, stunned. You thought I was the favorite? Oh, please. Mom and Dad paid for your culinary school, supported your catering dreams. I had to make it on my own. They remortgaged their house for your failed tech startup. I shot back. They've bailed you out of every mess you've created since high school. Enough. Emma's voice cut through the chaos. She walked up to Derek, slipped her engagement ring off her finger, and placed it in his hand. We're done, she said quietly. Not because you borrowed money, but because you lied. To everyone, including yourself. The fight seemed to drain out of Derek. He looked around the room, at the guests recording everything, at Otto's disgusted face, at Mom's tears, at me. I was going to pay you back, he whispered. Once the merger went through, I just needed a chance. You had a chance, I replied. You had a sister who believed in you, and you threw it away for a shortcut. Security finally managed to escort Derek out, this time for good. As his shouts faded into the night, Otto addressed the remaining guests. Show's over, he announced. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. As people filed out, Michaela approached with my coat. Ready to go? I nodded, exhausted, but Emma caught my arm. Stay, she said. Please, we still have all this food, and I could use a friend who understands what it's like to be disappointed by someone you love. I looked at Michaela, who shrugged. The villa's kitchen is pretty amazing. Okay, I said, shrugging off my coat. But I'm teaching you how to make that sauce, without the hidden messages this time. Emma managed a small smile. Deal. And Summer, thank you for having the courage to serve up the truth, even when it hurt. As we headed toward the kitchen, I heard Mom's heels clicking on the marble floor as she left, alone. Some relationships, I realized, wouldn't survive tonight's revelations. But maybe that's what karma was all about, clearing away what's broken to make room for something true. The morning after the rehearsal dinner disaster, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Local news had picked up the story, and social media was ablaze with shaky videos of Derek's drunken meltdown. "You're trending," Michaela announced, showing me her phone over breakfast in the villa's kitchen. "Wedding caterer and our revenge served are going viral." "Great," I muttered, scrolling through dozens of missed calls from Mom. Just what I needed. Emma walked in, looking surprisingly composed for someone whose wedding had imploded 12 hours ago. "The press is outside the gates. Dad's handling it. I'm so sorry about all this attention." I started, but she waved me off. "Are you kidding? You saved me from marrying a con man. I should be thanking you." She poured herself coffee and sat down. "Besides, the media attention might actually help your business." As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from my biggest client back home. "Saw the news. That sauce trick was brilliant. Double your usual rate for our next event?" "See?" Emma smiled. "Silver linings." The kitchen door burst open. Otto strode in, followed by two serious-looking men in suits. "Summer," Otto said. "These gentlemen are from the Financial Crimes Unit. They'd like to ask you some questions about Derek's activities." For the next hour, I walked the investigators through everything: the loan, the ghosting, the evidence I'd gathered. They seemed particularly interested in Derek's other potential victims. "Your mother called," one investigator said, checking his notes. "She admitted to lending him substantial sums as well. Never repaid. Any idea where he is now?" the other asked. I shook my head. "Haven't heard from him since security removed him last night." "Well, we have." Otto held up his phone. "He just tried to access the company accounts. My security team tracked him to a hotel in Florence." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "He wouldn't." "He would," Otto grimaced. "Fortunately, we froze everything the moment the truth came out. But he's desperate now. Summer, you should be careful." The villa's security system suddenly blared to life. Through the kitchen window, I saw Derek's distinctive figure scaling the back garden wall. "You ruined everything," he shouted, stumbling toward the kitchen. His designer suit was wrinkled, his face unshaven. "I had it all planned out." The investigators moved toward the door, but Derek was faster. He burst into the kitchen, wild-eyed and desperate. "Derek," I said calmly, though my heart was racing, "it's over. Just turn yourself in." "Turn myself in?" He laughed manically. "For what? Taking a loan from my sister? That's not a crime." "Fraud is," one investigator stated. "So is attempting to access company accounts without authorization." "I deserved that money." Derek's voice cracked. "Do you know how hard it is, living in your shadow? Perfect Summer, with her perfect business, everyone's favorite." "Favorite?" I stepped forward, anger finally boiling over. "Is that why Mom and Dad helped you buy your first car while I worked 3 jobs? Why they funded your startups while I took out loans for culinary school? Why Mom's still defending you after you stole from her, too?" Derek faltered, his carefully constructed narrative crumbling. I I just needed." "You needed to be honest," Emma said quietly. "With us, with yourself." The investigators moved in, but Derek had one last card to play. "Mom's lost everything," he blurted. "Her savings, her retirement, all invested in my business. If I go down for fraud, she loses it all. Is that what you want, Summer?" I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me. The right thing and the easy thing were two very different paths in that moment. "Actually," Otto stepped forward, "I have a proposition. Mr. Robinson, you'll turn yourself in and make full restitution to all parties. In exchange, I'll ensure your mother's investments are protected. And," he glanced at me, "we'll handle this privately, away from the media circus." Derek's shoulders slumped. The fight drained from him as reality finally set in. "Summer," he whispered as the investigators led him away. I really was going to pay you back. I just got lost somewhere along the way. I watched my brother being escorted out, remembering the kid who used to protect me from playground bullies, who taught me to ride a bike, who celebrated my first catering gig. You okay? Michaela squeezed my hand. No, I admitted. But I will be. Emma approached with 3 glasses of champagne. To new beginnings, and maybe a new catering contract. Dad's company hosts a lot of events. I managed a small smile, taking a glass. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, warming the Tuscan air. Sometimes revenge doesn't taste like you expect it to. Sometimes it tastes like truth, like freedom, like the bittersweet end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. To new beginnings, I agreed, raising my glass, and to serving up exactly what's deserved. The Italian sunset painted Villa Lorenzo in shades of gold as I packed the last of my cooking equipment. The past few days had been a blur of police statements, legal documents, and endless questions from the press. Your flight's not until tomorrow, Emma said from the kitchen doorway. Dad's hosting a small dinner tonight, just family. Well, what's left of it? I hesitated, but she pressed on. Mom called. She's coming too. Says she has something to say to you. My hand stilled on the knife roll I was wrapping. I'm not sure I'm ready for another family confrontation. Trust me, Emma smiled. You'll want to hear this one. The villa's dining room looked different now, intimate, with just 6 place settings. Otto sat at the head of the table, Emma to his right. Michaela helped me bring out the simple pasta dishes we'd prepared. Mom arrived last, clutching her handbag like a shield. Her eyes were red, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled. Summer, she said softly. I I found these while cleaning out Derek's old room. She pulled out a stack of papers, bank statements, loan applications, rejected credit cards. He was drowning in debt long before he came to you. I just didn't want to see it. Mrs. Robinson, Otto interjected gently, the restitution papers are ready. Your investments will be protected, as promised. Mom nodded, then turned back to me. I've been thinking about what you said, about always favoring Derek. You were right. I thought I was helping him, but I was just enabling. Mom, let me finish. She straightened her spine. I'm selling the house, using the money to pay back everyone Derek hurt, including you. It's time I stopped protecting him and started supporting you instead. The room fell silent. Even Michaela stopped serving to stare. That's not necessary, I started, but Mom cut me off. Yes, it is, because you were right about something else, too. Real family shows up. Real family tells the truth, even when it hurts. She reached across the table, taking my hand. I'm sorry I forgot that. Emma cleared her throat. Speaking of family and truth, Dad and I have been talking. Otto nodded. We'd like to offer you a partnership, your catering company, backed by Weber Industries. Complete creative control, but with resources to expand internationally. Starting with that sauce trick, Emma added. Minus the revenge messages, of course. It could be our signature, custom messages appearing in food for special events. I glanced at Michaela, who was practically vibrating with excitement. There's one condition, Otto continued. We want to start with a special event next month, a smaller, more intimate wedding. Emma held up her hand, now wearing a simple, elegant ring. I'm marrying someone who actually deserves me, my college sweetheart. We reconnected after everything, and I want you to cater it, as my friend, not just my chef. Tears pricked my eyes, but these were different from the angry ones I'd shed over Derek's betrayal. These felt like release, like possibility. What about Derek? I asked Mom. Have you heard? He's in treatment, she replied. Voluntary? The prosecutor agreed to consider it during sentencing. He's finally facing his demons instead of running from them. He left this for you, Emma added, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside was a handwritten note. Summer, I'm sorry, not just for the money, but for letting jealousy poison everything good between us. You weren't the golden child. You were just brave enough to work for what you wanted instead of stealing it. Maybe someday I'll learn to be that brave. Derek. So, Otto raised his glass. What do you say? Ready to turn your revenge recipe into a legitimate business miracle? I looked around the table, at Mom's hopeful smile, at Emma's genuine friendship, at Michaela's barely contained enthusiasm, at Otto's professional respect. On one condition, I said, raising my own glass. We call it Just Desserts Catering. The table erupted in laughter, the sound echoing through the villa, where just days ago everything had fallen apart. Now it felt like things were finally falling into place. To Just Desserts, Emma toasted, and to the chef who serves them. As the Tuscan night settled around us, I realized revenge hadn't tasted like I expected. Instead, it tasted like truth, like forgiveness, like family redefined. Most importantly, it tasted like a future I'd earned, one perfectly plated moment at a time. To new recipes, I added, clinking my glass with theirs, and to serving exactly what each person deserves, the good and the bad, the bitter and the sweet. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't serving cold dishes, it's serving up the truth and letting karma handle the rest.